Super excited to have you here. Super excited to have PricewaterhouseCooper and their great team members here to help us out with this panel. They're going to be discussing a little bit about their careers, their trajectories, and giving you some tips and pointers of what you can do to ultimately, reach their level of success. So we're really excited to have that. Anthony is going to be our moderator, so I'm going to pass it to him. He'll be walking you through a little bit about what PricewaterhouseCooper does, some of their clients, and then ultimately leading and moderating the panel. So Anthony, they're all yours.
Thanks so much. And then kind of as we go through material today, feel free to ping into the chat tool, or obviously feel free to interrupt and ask questions along the way. It's an open forum, anyone can ask questions. And Tarang and I will do our best to kind of answer those questions on the fly to keep you in the loop. And also, if you have questions that you want to ask as we get into individual panelists, feel free to bring those questions up and just type the name of the individual that you want to ask the question to if there's a specific question to a specific person, and we can make sure that we try to moderate those around and kind of handle that as well. So I will kind of move quickly through the material because I really want to focus on having people have the opportunity to ask questions and time at the end. So just quick a little bit about our firm, right? So PwC is a consulting, accounting, and advisory firm. We focus on a lot of different areas, and we'll get into those areas in a second. But just to give you sort of some context on the overall firm, there are about 276,000 employees around the world. We operate in multiple countries. We operate throughout the entire continental United States. And our overall purpose, really, what drives us is around sort of acting with integrity, making sure that that we try to be the best at what we do. We try to make a difference, and we try to do the best that we can for our clients at all times by showing, sort of compassion and care, and focusing on the things that they need and making sure that we deliver value in sort of all of our projects and the work that we do for them. To give you a little bit more context in terms of some of the companies that we've worked with. Pretty much any company that you've been involved with, we've probably worked with at some point in time. We have tons and tons of relationships, a lot of IT, a lot of tech companies. We have a big presence in San Francisco where a lot of the tech companies exist. But again, as I mentioned, we do consulting and accounting work across sort of all of the major US cities with offices sort of around the world as well. And we also try to focus on things like making charitable donations and giving back to the communities that we work within. As part of that, our firm has a great reputation in terms of great places to work. Sort of as you kind of look in college at places that you're interested in considering, and we'll talk about this more, but things like culture, what your company gives back, and sort of how your company operates will start to be more and more important. And I think personally, I feel like we're very lucky to work where we work in terms of how the firm treats us. How they think of us as employees, not just as sort of staff, but as actual people to care about and think about our wants and needs on a day-to-day basis. It's just a really important thing to think about in your own career. As I mentioned, just to give you a sense, I know that a lot of you are scattered around the country. You may have started in the Los Angeles area, but you may be going to college in other places, or you may be considering living other places. PwC, like many companies, has offices around the country. So as you think about, potentially internships, this forum is not necessarily around, providing internships, but I know that some of you are considering the firm for different opportunities. We do have offices all over the place. When you submit for those internships, you can consider sort of any place in the country. We also, obviously, under the pandemic situation, we're all working remotely currently, and a large portion of our firm works remotely a large portion of the time. So there's a lot of flexibility there in terms of opportunities to work as well. So basically, as you can see, if there's a city in the country that you're interested in, we probably have an office there. The other thing I wanted to highlight is during non-pandemic times, a large portion of our consulting staff travels on a regular basis, meaning we leave on Monday mornings, we come back Thursday afternoons, so we live on the road. So I'm based in Los Angeles, but I've spent lots of times on projects in San Francisco. I've traveled as far as places like Baltimore and Chicago on a pretty consistent basis for projects. So if that's something you're interested in, that's another piece of this equation. So also quickly, since we have different panelists from different areas within the firm, I just want to give a quick overview of what those areas are. So, and you'll hear them talking about those. So just so that you understand exactly what that means. So the four major areas are assurance, tax, advisory, and internal firm services. Assurance is really all about audit work. So obviously companies have to have external review of the work that they do and the financial reports that they make. That's where our audit group comes in. They actually do that work and make sure that they're living up to the expectations and sort of the commitments that they made around their financial reporting. Tax is all about making sure that companies pay their taxes. So helping them understand how to pay their taxes, when to pay their taxes, the specific areas that they have around their specific businesses. Obviously, taxes are insanely complicated, and they get even more complicated for businesses. So this group basically focuses on that, helping them make the best decisions. Advisory, which is the group that I work in, is focused on consulting, right? So we basically work with companies to make recommendations about how to do different things within their companies. And those things can be wide ranging. Me, for example, I'm in project management. So those projects could be tech projects. They could be connected to the individual industry. And those, just as an example, I know there's some people on the line that are interested in healthcare. We specifically do work around healthcare practices, right? So making suggestions to groups like insurance companies about how to operate their businesses the best way possible. And then last but not least, internal firm services. So IFS focuses on sort of the business of making our business run, right? So PwC has marketing work. PwC has sales work that we have to do in order to make our business work. We're obviously recruiting. They have the staff that, like myself, that they have to manage, and then all the administration that goes into making all of us be able to work here. And so that's within our firm. It's its own sort of working group all the time. So any questions before I jump ahead? Because I know that's a lot. Okay, feel free to ping in your questions and we'll try to answer them along the way as well. So without further ado, I will quickly introduce myself and then I will let each of our panelists introduce themselves. I'll try to make this quick. So as I mentioned, I'm in the advisory group, so I do mostly consulting work for the firm. My role within the firm is specifically around project management. So essentially to kind of boil it down, just like the projects that you do in college, I help companies manage their projects and then manage groups of projects and then groups of projects, just kind of boil it down to its simplest basis, right? And those projects obviously become complicated by things like how much those projects cost, when they're going to finish, and what's involved in completing them. And sort of we work on those parts at all times. Kathy, who's on the line as well, works within that group, and she'll kind of talk more about some of her role within that as well as we move forward. Just to give you a little background, I've worked in consulting for most of my career, but I had previous experiences in the entertainment industry. So just to kind of give you that flavor of the fact that a lot of us have moved around between different careers over the course of our time in jobs. So you'll hear more of that. And then just in terms of my major and background, I graduated in 2003 with a degree in economics. I went back to school in 2007 and got an MBA, so a follow-up graduate degree. I'm focused on business as well. So I kind of always knew I wanted to do business, but you'll hear from other people on this call as sort of how their major expectations changed as they got into their career fields. So just to kind of highlight that. And then just in terms of advice, we'll talk more about majors. I kind of just mentioned your major and what you do will change a little bit. The world is changing very quickly. So adapting and modifying your career as you go is going to be a thing that you're going to have to deal with even more than we're having to. And our parents definitely had to in terms of changing movement and things kind of constantly kind of changing. And then the only other thing I wanted to say, just from my personal experience around internships, is you have the opportunity to do multiple internships when you're in college. Take advantage. Do internships at lots of different companies in lots of different fields. If you're not sure if you want to do something, that's your chance. Like, it's very hard once you get out into the world to switch your careers around without taking, pay cuts and steps backwards. So take advantage of it when you're in college. Do different internships. Okay. So I will now turn it over to Kathy to kind of give a quick summary of herself.
Thanks, Anthony. Hello, everyone. Catherine Elias. I am part of, like Anthony, our advisory group at PwC. I've been with PwC about 10 years, and I'm a managing director, and I lead our program and portfolio management competency. I, like Anthony, have done a lot of project and large program type work for our clients, whether it's helping them through large technology transformations, or perhaps they're just looking to improve their business and business operations, perhaps how they're structured, etc. We also help our clients with what we call project portfolio management, which is really understanding the projects that you're doing and are they delivering the intended value or benefit that the company is trying to get out of it. So companies invest a lot of money in the different projects that they undertake every year, and you want to ensure that those projects are delivering the return that they anticipated, and the value towards the strategy that they're trying to accomplish. So I've been working in this field for a very long time. And as you can see from my background, I went to the University of Nebraska in Lincoln, and I have a journalism degree, which is, that's not what I originally, as I'm in consulting, had set out to do. When you look at what my degree is, I started in business administration, moved to journalism when I was in school, and thought that's what I wanted to do when I got out of college. But as I got into the working world, and the first company that I started with was a consulting company, it intrigued me, and that's where I found my niche, and that's where I am today, many years later. What I will say, similar to what Anthony said, is it's okay to change your mind. Explore, take advantage of internship opportunities that give you the ability to kind of poke around and see what is of interest to you and where you might want to find yourself, but make sure it's something that makes you happy. That's the one thing that, I've shared not only with the folks that work for me, but my own kids, is, you get up every morning and you have to go to work. You might as well be doing something that you enjoy and that's going to make you happy. And so always keep that in your mind. Anthony mentioned taking advantage of internship opportunities, but it's also about the relationships. So as you go through school, as you take advantage of internships, the different people that you meet along the way, hold on to those relationships and nurture them, because you never know where those relationships and that network can take you in your future. So with that, I'll hand it over back to Anthony.
Great points. Thanks so much. Yeah, the networking definitely has changed my career path a couple of times. So that's a great point. Sheridan, do you want to go next?
Yep, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Sheridan. I'm a senior associate in the assurance practice in core assurance. So basically auditing public and private companies, and mostly focused on not-for-profit companies. So a lot of schools, also JPL, which is pretty cool. They just launched their moon rover or Mars rover thing, which was pretty cool to watch. Yeah, and then so prior to joining PwC, I was at another internship in forensic accounting, and that lasted for about 2.5 years, so a pretty long internship. And then I graduated from Cal State Northridge with a dual degree in accounting and business admin in 2017, and then started at the firm in 2018. Love it here. There's a lot of freedom, and yeah, and then advice. Whatever you do, have a good attitude. This is, I think, the thing that's taken me the furthest at PwC, and I think it will continue to propel me forward. But people like working with people who have a good attitude, and it, keeps yourself happy to be thinking positively. And then I'll kind of repeat what Catherine had said. Relationships are so important, and while you're in college, building relationships with your peers and your professors it's going to be like, it's going to have a tremendous impact on your career and your future. I'm still in contact with a lot of my professors, and it's nice to kind of have that mentorship guidance, and most professors are more than happy to kind of take you under their wing and help you out if you show that you're going to put in the effort. And then the last one, view every challenge as an opportunity to learn. So this kind of goes along with the have a good attitude, but yeah, be a lifelong learner. And if you are encountering something that is frustrating or tough, it's an opportunity to learn and grow. And I'm gonna hand it back. Thanks, Anthony.
Of course. Great points. Thanks so much. Tarang, I'll let you go next.
Sounds good. Thanks, Anthony, and thanks everyone else for being here. Really excited to share some thoughts and be part of this panel discussion. So like Anthony said, my name is Tarang. I am also a senior associate like Sheridan. I'm working in the advisory practice though. So if you remember earlier, we had the different buckets, right? So I'm part of the advisory similar to Anthony and Catherine, but I'm working more on the post-deal integration. So post-deal integration, what does that mean? It's basically doing program management or project management for companies as they transition through a recent acquisition. So they bought a company or a divestiture where they've sold a company. So if you think of, when Amazon, for instance, bought Whole Foods, that's two different companies coming together, and there needs to be some integration work to make sure that they can both, act as one. So one example of that, right, is Amazon, delivers things to your door. Whole Foods is groceries. All of a sudden now you have like Amazon Fresh, right, which is now groceries delivered to your door. So helping companies think through those types of opportunities, and also helping companies actually integrate their different functions, whether it's finance, IT, legal, etc. So that's sort of what I do on a day-to-day basis. Prior to this type of role that I've been part of, I used to work actually as an engineer in the oil and gas industry. So that's very different than what I'm currently doing. And when you think about sort of the skill set and you think about the types of things that you're learning along the way, there's a lot of actually parallels from engineering to consulting. And so if you look on the bottom there, right, my undergrad degree was in chemical engineering from UCLA. And then I later ended up getting an MBA as well. So similar to Anthony, and that was also at UCLA as well. And my advice, I tried to keep it short. Communication is key. I think one of the most important things you'll learn is, oh, hey, did you know? Thanks for the Go Bruins. All right, right on. All right, so communication is key. I think that one is really important because how you communicate what you know is critical, right? You may know all of the information, but if you can't communicate it to the people that need to know that information, it's sort of somewhat useless. So I think as an engineer, right, taking technical information, breaking it down, simplifying it, even as consultants, working on some complex information and then streamlining it, that part is really important. And then everyone's talked about relationships, and I think that's a key theme that you'll hear. So right, teamwork makes the dream work. So no task is ever done just by one person. It's always a collection of individuals. And again, through that communication, building the relationships can really help not just your career, but also those around you. And then the last thing I'll say is listen first, speak second. The reason I say that is a lot of people have lots of great ideas, great input to add. And the more we listen to each other and understand where people are coming from, it's a lot easier to then solve problems and sort of make decisions more efficiently and also make more effective decisions. So I'll leave it at that. And yeah, thanks again for being here. Anthony, back to you.
Thanks. Okay, and last but certainly not least, Rosie, do you want to?
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Rosie. So I just graduated from USC 2020, May 2020. So I was in all of your positions less than a year ago. And I interned here at PwC summer of 2019. And then I officially started in January for full time this past January. So brand new and happy to answer any like fresh college questions you guys might have. But I'm currently a part of the experience consulting practice, which is another sector of the advisory practice. And basically what I do there is we solve clients' problems, anything that is associated with the customer experience, specifically the digital experience. So the projects vary so much from client to client, and it's super hard to generalize, but basically just improving the end-to-end customer journey from a digital interface point of view. And through there, I'm on the strategy side. So strategically thinking and asking the customer itself what would be the best solutions for that. So my previous role for that, aside from my internship here, is I had a lot of internships and experience in marketing. And that was pretty much where my interest lied the most. I graduated with a degree in business administration with focuses in customer behavior and marketing. And my advice would be very similar to Anthony's and the others. Don't freak out if you don't know what to do. It's going to change so much and you'll learn from every single experience. So just start experiencing and then you'll learn what you like and don't like from there. Try to have internships during the summer, like Anthony mentioned. That's where you'll learn and grow the most. That's where you'll grow your network the most, gain those experiences. If my biggest regret is not doing an internship outside of the city I'm based in, because I've been in LA my whole life and I never want to leave, but an internship would have been a great opportunity to leave. Lastly, be open-minded, try new things. Now's the time. Stay curious, always want to learn, and yeah, now's that time to experiment. So do that. Back to you, Anthony.
Thanks so much. So again, as I mentioned, if anyone on the call and these students want to feel free to send me a message in the chat. I will definitely ask those questions. I guess the question that I'm going to lead off with is one of the questions that was provided by a student previously from the emails that we got. And so I'll open this up to sort of all of the panelists and feel free to kind of jump in as you guys feel ready. So now that you've been on the other end of the hiring process, what would you say are important things to remember when looking for a job and interviewing? So I know, Kathy, you've hired a ton of people in your career. I know, Tarang, you've been in parts of teams that have hired people. Feel free to just kind of weigh in on sort of what things you're looking for, what things you focus on, and sort of how you make those decisions. So.
Okay, go ahead, Catherine.
I would say, so Anthony said you've hired a bunch of people. True, and I've also sat in your seat. So, and I can remember my first interviews and being so nervous, and that's okay. And as somebody that hires people, it's okay to be nervous because we've sat in your chair, we've been in your place, and we can tell if you're nervous. Take your time. Share your experiences and be your real authentic self, because that's what we're looking for. And again, I think the internships and being able to demonstrate what you've learned through those internships and how you could apply it in the job that you're interviewing for. Think about that as you go into your interview. But try to let go of the nervousness and just be your authentic self, because that's truly what we're looking for. Go ahead, Tarang.
Yeah, I think that's great, Catherine. Thanks for sharing. I think the only piece to add to that is ultimately, like when you think about working in teams, right? And everyone's talked about relationships. I think one of the key things you want to do with an interview is also like make sure you are pressure testing the company or the person or the group that you're working with, right? So the job of description is one piece of it, but who you're working with is another piece. And kind of on the flip side also, the person interviewing you wants to know, if Tarang was on my team, how would I feel about that and how would I interact with him and what is my kind of dynamic there? So make sure it's sort of a win-win for both parties. I think a lot of times, at least as a person interviewing for a role, I do tend to get nervous myself, and I have to keep reminding myself that it's not just me that wants this job, it's also the company that's looking for someone to fill that job. So I think that dual piece of it really helps me at least kind of calm down a little bit and also be very focused on kind of how I'm feeling while I'm in the interview.
Sheridan or Rosie, I guess you've been in this interview process more recently. Is there anything that you did specifically that sort of you feel set you apart or helped you sort of work your way through the process that you wanted to highlight quickly?
Yeah, I can go ahead. So I my father's been a consultant basically his whole career. So he gave me like a little insight into the interview process before I interviewed. And his biggest thing, kind of like Tarang was saying, is the airport trick. And would you want to be stuck in the airport with this person for 5 hours? Kind of like Tarang was saying, would you want this person to be on your team? So just be yourself, be personable, and you know, don't like memorize a script. Just live in the moment. And you know, during one of my interviews for PwC, we barely even talked about my experiences. So you can go off tangents, and that's okay, and that's even better. So I guess that's the biggest thing.
I'll add to that. That's really good, Rosie. I'll add to that when you're looking for a job and for internships, make sure you're looking for places that they have like similar values to you. That is something that will obviously make you want to work for them, and the interviewer can kind of sense the passion. So yeah, be authentic and real, but make sure that the values align with yours.
Definitely, I agree with that fully. Yeah, I'd rather work with a group of imperfect people, meaning they're not the best at what they do, but I really love working with them, than have to work with a bunch of amazing people that are terrible to work around. It just makes every day longer. So fully agree. Next question I was going to bring up, and again, feel free to ping me. You can even just ping me directly if you have a question. What were some factors that you considered when choosing this career path? So I'll kind of open it up to the full group, but what drove you to, you know, pick either your major and your career, or to the career that you're in now, I guess specifically?
I can kick it off and then hand it off to others. So maybe I'll talk about both sort of the decision to go into engineering, the first kind of career path I had which is oil and gas, and then also the transition. So initially, when I thought about, you know, what do I want to major in, a lot of it boils down to things that I thought, you know, what am I good at right now? What do I enjoy doing? And I remember even like in elementary school, this is going to sound very nerdy now, but I think it's important, is I love the concept of like photosynthesis, right? I was like, how amazing is it that a tree just sits there, or a plant just there in one location, never moves, and is able to basically live way past any human beings, right? I mean, think about some of those like Sherman oak trees and things like that live like several hundred years, and those don't even move an inch, just right there, the sunlight, air, you know, the roots grow, and that's it. So to me, I was like very fascinated by science, how things work, why things work the way they do. And so that really inspired me, not just for engineering, but specifically like chemical engineering as well. So that kind of drove me there. And then when I started thinking about what a chemical engineer does, and I was like, okay, now I'm doing this degree, what career path will I have? Energy was something, again, thinking about the photosynthesis, right? How a plant just survives and is able to live for several hundred years. A lot of how the world sort of functions, right? When you think about the airplanes, the cars, how your Amazon food gets delivered, things like that. A lot of that revolves around energy. And so oil and gas was really appealing to me, and that's sort of how I made that path. So thinking about what some of the earlier folks have said, right? Where Anthony said also like find what you like. And then I think Catherine also mentioned, right? You don't want to just be doing a job, you want to be doing things that you love. So that really kind of inspired me. So the natural next question you're going to ask is, well, why did you switch then to consulting? How does that make sense? So what happened there is I said, okay, I really understand energy industry. I'm starting to work here, but the world is so much bigger, broader, and also there's so many more pieces in the energy industry, and also like different things of how businesses work. So that really inspired me then to go get an MBA, right? Making our career pitch from engineering, energy to businesses and MBA. And then PwC consulting, you know, how businesses work, what better time to learn how businesses work than when two businesses are either coming together or a business is trying to separate into two sub-functions, right? So thinking about deals or mergers, acquisitions, and then also separation. So again, that interest, that curiosity, wanting to learn, understand, kind of drove me towards PwC. And that's kind of why I decided to go into this path of like M&A deals. So with that, I'll hand it off to anyone else that would like to chime in.
No, I'll just double down on that, Tarang. I mean, when I think about, you know, everyone kind of their eyebrows go up when they see your degrees in journalism. How is that applicable, right? because so many people in advisory and consulting have, you know, computer science degrees typically. And what I loved when I was going to school was I had, you know, business administration. I took a lot of marketing classes, journalism. You know, I love to write. I love the communications pieces of that. But then as I was exposed to consulting after I graduated, all of those things translate to what I do today. So the ability to communicate well, that's a skill that you have to have if you're going to be successful in advisory. You have to be able not only to verbally communicate well, but also be able to write well and present your message, whether it's tailoring it up or down. So strong communication skills, strong writing skills that I got as part of my education translated to what I'm doing today. So even though I'm not in journalism, I've taken a lot of what I learned and I've applied it to the role that I currently do today.
Yeah, and just to add on that, I chose this particular position, especially considering the point I'm at in my life, just starting out my career really, because I think it's such an awesome opportunity to learn so much about so many different things and so many different industries and so many different positions, because you're constantly working with people in other industries. Like I'm business, but I'm personally constantly working with designers or engineers or things like that on different clients from different industries. So I think it's a great way to learn, especially what you like and don't like, and start getting your interests aligned and just like explore more and stay open-minded. So that's what brought me here.
And I'll add really quick. Also, when you're, one of the things that specifically drew me to PwC was the career trajectory. Knowing that there are going to be opportunities for me to step into leadership roles was really important, and to be able to do that quick and have more responsibility, lead projects, lead audits. That is also an important thing to consider when you're looking at your career.
Definitely. Okay, so we actually got a question from somebody in the group. I won't call out the student's name so that other students feel comfortable sending me messages as well. And I know this is going to drive this group absolutely bananas, so I love this question. What does a typical day look like at PwC, specifically within consulting and advising? So I guess who wants to lead off explaining what a day of work is like here? I'm going to enjoy watching this group answer this question.
I guess I'll start. Like I said, I started in January, but I did have my internship, so I have that to base it off of anyway. But every day is so different. But I would say it usually starts off with a kickoff meeting with your group to get aligned on what you did the day before and what you're going to do that day. That's usually every day. And then meetings throughout the day. Sometimes they're associated with like self-learnings and trainings. Sometimes they're associated with like career coaching, talking to others or reaching out and meeting. And this is me from starting out, or meeting others and networking. Sometimes they're associated with client projects. And I would say that's the majority of the time and always the priority. And then from there, I guess in between just working towards the end goal of that day / week on the client project. Yeah.
So I think it's a little different in our pandemic world. Before we were all kind of on lockdown with COVID, it was different. So as Anthony kind of stated up front, in advisory, typically we go to our client sites. So Monday morning would be you're on a plane, you're going to whatever client site you have, you're working at that client site, and then you come back on Thursday afternoon / evening, and then you either work from your home office or your PwC location office on Friday. It's for me, I have several different clients. So it's a lot of meetings with a lot of different clients. In the days when we could travel, sometimes I would travel to, you know, different places, different cities in the same week, or, you know, every other week to a different city. So it kind of depends if you have one client versus you have responsibility for multiple clients. But it's definitely different now since we're all kind of working from home, and it's just you're jumping from meeting to meeting. I hate to say that, but that's the truth.
I guess I can just chime in. The only thing that I'll add to what Catherine and Rosie already said, right? So there is no day that's exactly the same. However, there are general themes that you will have. So it depends a lot on the client that you're working with. So in my current project, for instance, the client I'm working with is a global client. So they have offices, you know, in Europe. They also have, so Scotland, Ireland, Israel. They have offices in Asia, Singapore, Taiwan, Korea, and they also have offices in the US. And so with that, what ends up happening is I end up having some morning meetings, you know, like 7 a.m., 7:30, that time frame, where I'm talking to folks in Europe that are sort of ending their day. And then I also have, you know, some meetings with the US team, which is also like mid-morning. But then the afternoon actually ends up being pretty quiet. So from like, let's say 1 o'clock to about 4:30, 5 o'clock, right around actually this time normally is sort of the time where I have, you know, a little bit of downtime. I go get a workout in, or I do something that's a little bit, you know, personal and to myself. And then in the evenings, sort of like around 5 o'clock onwards till about 9, is when I have a lot of calls with the Asia team. So like Singapore, Taiwan, Korea, because that's their morning for them. So one of the really interesting things on this project is it's not my typical like 8 to 5, and then I have sort of the evening to myself. It's more of there's like a morning session, afternoon is sort of a lull, and then it picks up again a little bit in the evening. And so being adaptable with your schedule and understanding also where clients are coming from and what your role is on the project, I think that's something that's important to note in this career path.
Sheridan, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Assurance, core assurance is a lot different than advisory. It's a lot of, I guess pre-COVID, you're at the client site, which is, you know, anywhere in LA. You're talking to the client, having meetings with your team, a lot of like analysis time for you to go through and complete work papers. But yeah, after you know, lockdown, it's a lot of time in front of your computer, a lot of times time in meetings. But the good thing about that is it allows for a lot of flexibility. So at any time I can get up and go for a walk or do whatever I need to do.
Great. Yeah, so I just want to highlight something that I kind of observed from the 4 people that spoke that I'll just bring up for a second, just so you get a sense of this. So what your day is like is really also dependent on where you are in your career, right? So when I was younger, when I started out in my career, my role was specifically around, I was doing the legwork, right? So I was the person that was doing, I was working on the PowerPoint presentation, I was attending the phone calls, I was taking the notes. As I've moved up through my career, I'm spending more and more of my time managing others, making sure that I'm answering their questions, I'm addressing what they have going on, making sure that I'm focused on, you know, doing that piece. And then as you move up, as maybe, you know, Kathy's role, she spends her day sort of looking at a big picture, thinking about what lots of people are doing, what lots of teams are doing, how those teams, are they working toward their overall direction, right? Or is everyone going in the same direction? Is the project working the way it's supposed to? And so your life changes over time in terms of your role and every day on a project, right? So I kind of miss the days of just being heads down and getting to do work and turn that work in and going home and not having to think about all the other pieces. So that'll change. The other thing I wanted to talk about a little is flexibility, right? So as Tarang mentioned, right? So the world that we live in now with COVID means that you do have to adapt, right? I have calls right now that for me that start at 6 a.m. sometimes because it's an East Coast project. Or I have been on other projects where, because I'm integrated with a China team, where we have calls at 6 p.m. our time that are morning for them so that we're meeting their schedule. So I think for most of you, a lot of you are going to have careers where you're going to be working with people that are internationally based. It's not just going to be in the US anymore. That's a big change from the way it's been before. The other thing that I'll bring up is, and I'm sure you've heard this from your parents because I know I did growing up, was you're doing too many things at once and you've got all these crazy things that you're focused on that don't make sense. And I would say 100% now, especially post-COVID, that is our lives, right? I am texting, chatting, messaging, video conferencing, emailing. I've got 30 things going on at once with 20 different people, like multitasking and dealing with all those pieces and communicating in all those different ways, and especially all the new tools. Every day there's a new tool I have to learn and adapt to and figure out how to make work. Super valuable skill. So I know people that are older than you are giving you a hard time, but whatever the new thing is, learn it, learn how to use it, because inevitably you're going to do that on your job. Like there's stuff that we're doing now that we weren't doing even a couple of years ago that is now a big part of my day-to-day job that I wasn't focused on. So does anyone want to add to that from the group, the panel, I guess?
Yeah, the only thing that I'll add to that, Anthony, is not only like you have to keep up, so be that continuous learner, but it also varies by client because each client may use a different type of technology or tool set. So you may have to learn 2 or 3 different tools that really do the same thing, whether that's, an email system, chat, whatever. Even like Zoom as an example, our clients use different types of ways to communicate and facilitate meetings, and you're going to have to learn them all. So it's being that continuous learner and being able to stay up on stuff is very important.
Anybody else have anything they want to add? Okay. So my next question, I'm going to put Rosie on the spot just a little bit because you've actually been the most recent person to actually do an internship and then pivot that internship into a full-time job. So could you just talk a little bit about, how you found your internship? Obviously, you mentioned that you had a background in consulting before from your father, at least being interested in that field, but kind of what you did to get your internship and then how you pivoted that internship into a full-time position.
Sure. So like I said, I went to USC, and USC is awesome about having a bunch of companies come and just hold talks and sessions for any student to come and just learn and watch and listen to and ask questions, kind of like this. So I went to a bunch of different companies, and this is prior to my internship. Went to a bunch of different companies' talks, wasn't sure what I wanted to do. My father, like I said, wanted me to do consulting, but I didn't know if I wanted to do consulting. And then at one of the PwC talks, I learned about the Experience Center, which is the specific sector that I'm a part of. And the second I learned about that, I became super interested in consulting and learning more and PwC in general, because that was the only company that offered a position like that. And I liked that it was more customer facing because that aligned more with like my marketing and consumer behavior knowledge and passions. And so it just really aligned with my interests. And the second I heard about it, I networked through that specific, the Experience Center. And then from there, I applied, interviewed, got the internship. And then throughout the internship, I just tried to get my name out there, make as much of an impact as I can, get involved, really help the client where I can. And then I'm lucky enough to say at the end of my internship, I was offered the full-time position for what I'm currently doing now. So that was kind of the journey.
Nice. Okay. I guess Sheridan or Tarang, do you have similar stories you want to share?
Yep. So I also interned the summer before I started full time. It was a lot of fun, but it also kind of gave me a glimpse into what life would be like working at PwC. I had heard about the internship from a professor who I had built a relationship with. I didn't really know about the Big 4 accounting firms, which is PwC, KPMG, Deloitte, and EY. And from there, applied to all of them and decided to go with PwC, and it was a lot of fun. But yeah, another reason to be really close with professors and peers, because they also will kind of give you a heads up of some good internship opportunities.
Nice. Okay.
I think just to give some more, I guess, different perspective here is I totally align with what Rosie and Sheridan said in terms of, getting the internship is a combination of both knowing what's out there, so like Experience Center, for example, but then also leveraging the network, like Sheridan talked with her professor and peer group. So I think I would also say for me, it was similar where at UCLA, I had an opportunity to interact with several folks at PwC and other companies as well. I felt like I built a good relationship and a good rapport with the PwC folks in specific. And then again, thinking about that part that I talked about earlier, right? Teamwork makes the dream work. So who do I want to work with? And then also maybe who wants to work with me? So that relationship felt strongest with PwC. Through the interview process, it was, again, a good match. I felt like the people I met were consistent, and then did an internship. Internship went well, again, kind of that same theme, and then transitioned to a full-time job. But one thing I want to take back all the way to the first step is, number one, like knowing what you don't know is the biggest challenge, right? You don't know what you don't know. So talking to people to understand what's available, right? Like Sheridan just mentioned, like Big Four. And I don't know if everyone here on the call knows what the Big Four companies are, the Big Four accounting firms are, but PwC is one of them. So spending some time thinking through what skills do I have, what do I want to focus on, and then what is that kind of list of companies or career paths that would be interesting or that kind of match with that space. I think that's one key thing. The other thing I was going to also highlight is when you do apply for internships, definitely look at the actual job posting so that your resume matches the kind of what they're looking for in the description. And so we had kind of done a mock interview night a month ago or so. And one of the things I wanted to call out there is, you can do a lot of different things in school, but there's different pieces of that experience. If you worked on a group project, for instance, you may have, focused on leading a team. That could be one piece of it. Maybe you did some technical work in terms of the actual presentation. Maybe you leverage, Zoom and also Google like Slides to help deliver the content. So that's different platforms. So you can have the same experience talk about multiple, or the same experience can have multiple components. So make sure you're highlighting the relevant components in your resume based on that job to increase the chance for getting the interview, getting the internship, getting the job. So that's a full story, and then kind of going back and then bringing it home. Anthony, I think that's all I got for now.
Okay. No, I definitely agree with what you just said. For me, I think one of the things that I would highlight too, as he was just mentioning, sort of the Big Four. One of the ways, I guess, and I'll not a great analogy, but I'll use this analogy. If you wanted to be a football player, you need to know what teams you could potentially work for, right? And you'd want to know as much as you could about, how that sport works, right? And the same thing is true of your career, right? So if you want a job at Facebook, it's important to know who Facebook works with, what Facebook is doing, what other companies around Facebook are thinking, right? And what the overall industry is like. What is social media? What are they thinking about? What's the next thing that they're focused on? Where are they headed, right? Getting yourself connected to sort of that media piece of what's going on in the industry that you're interested in is super helpful. And it also gives you tons of content that's valuable for interviews, right? So knowing that you can talk about the subject matter that you're interested in working in makes them know that you're not just showing up at this interview because it's another interview to you. It's actually something that you want to do, and something that you're already passionate about and care about. So that would be my first thing. The other thing I wanted to highlight quickly is, we kind of mentioned this a little before, but you don't have to focus your career, or you don't have to focus your company search specifically on companies that are directly connected to what that thing is, right? So I'll use PwC as an example, right? We're a consulting and an accounting firm, but as I mentioned, we have people that do HR work. We have people that do sort of all the other parts that all other companies have. So look around, right? There could be roles that are the role that you're interested in at a company that doesn't do that thing, but they still need that role. And so broadening your search that way is another great way to kind of find opportunities. So yeah, just throwing that out there. Again, feel free to ping me questions, and those questions can even be specific to a person if there is a subject you're specifically interested in. I can make sure that I ask that question to the person. The next one I'm going to ask is just sort of a generic question, but how has your career grown over time? And when I ask that question, you know, I'm kind of thinking toward Kathy, but then also sort of the idea of, was it a calculated path that got you here? Did you say, I want to go from A to B? And this is kind of for everybody, but did I go from A to B? Or, you know, did I kind of find new roles along the way and it led me to where I am? So I'll open that question up to everybody, but maybe Kathy, you can start since you have the longest career path to talk through.
So, I mean, you kind of laid that groundwork a little bit before, Anthony, when you kind of shared when you first started your career, kind of what you were doing. You were kind of like doing like building the presentation decks, taking the notes. We all started there. So you all kind of start at the bottom and work your way up. And I won't say it was like I had this plan that I followed. It was more of I followed what was of interest to me at the time, and I may have taken some twists and turns along the way to truly, you know, find what was interesting to me. But I will say it has changed. You go from doing some of that to now a lot of what I do is not only oversight on a lot of different projects, but it's the people development aspects that as you progress in your career, and I do find this fulfilling and I really enjoy it, is I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it wasn't for the people that helped me along the way, that gave me the coaching, the mentoring, the guidance that I needed at different times throughout my career. And so it's kind of like that payback time for me, is that what's important to me right now is more about helping those that were in my position, you know, many years ago, right? And so a lot of what I do now is career development and coaching of my team from a succession planning standpoint to help them along in their career, not only within my own team, but more broader for the PwC firm. And so even, you know, as I've kind of grown in my career, first it was focusing on my team, and now it's even, you know, more broader, where I'm looking more firm-wide on how we're developing our people, developing our groups, on how we support our clients, making sure that we're doing the important things, the giving back things, the things that Anthony talked about at the beginning of as a firm, making a difference, caring, diversity, inclusion. I'm involved in a lot of initiatives along those lines as well, because to me, that's what's important now in my career, is to help those along the way, because others helped me. So that's how my career has changed.
Thanks so much. Sheridan Tarang, you're kind of in the middle of your career like me. Did you want to highlight anything specifically, since you're sort of in the path right now?
I'll say something really quick. When I started at the firm, it's a huge firm, as you can probably tell, and it has so many opportunities to become involved in clubs or leadership positions. So pretty quickly after joining the firm, I joined PwC's Access Your Potential group, and the diversity and inclusion group, and then the green team. And all of these are, they're groups that kind of focus on something outside of work, and more so geared towards social impact. Yeah, so being able to get involved in those groups and lead in those groups has been just a tremendous opportunity. And yeah, I'll leave that there.
Sounds good. I think Sheridan, and I think like Kathy had mentioned, and even kind of Sheridan touched upon, you will find in the space that you're a part of, there are different things that you naturally gravitate towards, right? So as far as career path goes, I talked about, you know, photosynthesis, chemical engineering, oil and gas, understanding how business works, and then PwC. And that's like, there's a linear trajectory there when you look back. But a lot of times when I think about looking forward, right, like what do I want to do next? It's sort of in this interesting, like what do I enjoy doing? What do I feel like I'm good at? And also what are skills that employers are looking for where there's a win-win? Because at the end of the day, it needs to be something that I'm passionate about, something that I'm strong at, and also something that's in demand, right? So there's that supply and demand piece that you always are trying to match and maximize it in your own context. So for me, when I think forward, it's always kind of with that North Star of what do I enjoy and what do I like? And when I look backwards, it's a lot of the skills that I learned, you know, in grade school, even when it comes to like the technical skills, or when it comes to managing teams on group projects, when I think about college, all of those things then help you get to where you are, and then also position you in the spot to move forward. So if you use that North Star compass of what do I enjoy doing and kind of where do I see myself going, you can have multiple careers in one career, right? Because oil and gas and consulting, some could argue, are two different career paths. Anthony, I'll hand it back to you with that.
Yeah, I fully agree. My career's definitely taken some hard left turns and then turned back. So take the opportunity, especially at the beginning of your career when it's less of a risk to try out different things, kind of as I mentioned before. We're running pretty short on time. We have about a minute left. And I know some of the people on this call are gonna have to jump off for 5 o'clock calls like I have. We did get one question that I'll go ahead and just kind of throw it out there. It's probably mostly for Rosie, but they're just asking about the internship, right? So kind of what year in college did you start thinking about internships, and kind of what was the process in terms of, you know, when did you get serious? What did you do? Kind of a little bit more of that piece.
Yeah, I'll try and keep it short, but yeah, I personally did an internship every summer of college. I just had a job before college even started, and I just kind of go crazy if I don't work, but that's just me. So I started thinking about internships from the get-go, and my internship specifically with PwC was in between my junior and senior year. And specifically what made me decide to continue with PwC was because of my internship experience there. Like it was awesome. The support was amazing. The autonomy I got and like the ability to make an impact was great. A lot of my previous internships, I really felt like an intern and they treated me like an intern. Whereas with PwC, I felt like I was just a member of the team. So I would say that's what made me choose the full time. But to get there, I had always been really thinking about internships and what's next.